Good evening.
Hello.
Today's episode, uh, as you know, it's the third episode of Jason Statham Facebook. So tonight we actually thought we'd ramp it up.
It's getting
Uh,
serious. Jason Statham's
Tonight
Facebook. He's
we,
in some groups, man. He's
yeah, man, it's getting freaky tonight. Uh, this conspiracy goes all the way to the top, all the way to the very top, to the top of the Houses of
the
Parliament,
tippy top tippest top. Yeah.
because it's actually mostly set in Big Ben. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, it's why it's so tall. Uh, and I think the best place to start is what we now call Swindon.
Yes.
Now,
That's where it all started.
that's where it all begins, and it begins with, as you know, evolution. Now, obviously, we became humans, then Neanderthals, and yeah, you know the story of evolution.
Yada yada
But
yada.
different ethnic groups began to develop. Uh, and one of those ethnic groups came out of what we now call Swindon.
Mm.
British people. Now,
Not to be
it's
confused with the Britons who inhabited the island before, you know, before the Anglo-Saxons came. They weren't real. That's just a
yeah,
government.
this is a myth.
Yeah.
But well, these British people, it's fine if you haven't heard of them because they've very much been able to kind of hide themselves in plain sight.
Mm-hmm.
Um and you know, it's fairly obvious when you think about it. There's England for the English people. There's Wales for the Welsh people, Scotland for Scottish people, and Ireland for Irish people.
Yeah.
Where's Britannia?
Yeah. It's
Uh,
not Brittany because that's for British people, as they're sometimes known. Um,
as they are well known, yeah.
there's, it's definitely not Turkey or any other
Oh,
country. Where
that's
do
too
they come
far.
from? Right? Where's their
Yeah,
country? There isn't one.
exactly. But what it meant was that on the British Isles, another kind of red herring. You want to keep that in your mind for later.
Mm-hmm. Remember
On
that
the
one?
British Isles, for a while, there were British people. Now, there were also Celts and things. It was a very diverse place. But what we have to laser focus in on are British people. Because what it really is while there were Anglo Saxons and people like that, there was also
Jutes.
always British people.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody pretty much.
Yeah.
There
There are
were
always
always
British
British
people.
people. Always British people. And these British people had a lot of power just by virtue of them kind of being everywhere
Yeah.
on this island.
Mm-hmm.
And so, then but and this all kind of happened and it wasn't really particularly nefarious. They just happened to be the largest population, so they'd have the most power.
Yeah.
It's not really that big of a deal.
They were, although not publicly, they were, you know, chief advisors and uh, administrators in, Mercia and Wessex and, all of the major kingdoms.
Yeah, they even had their own kingdom just called Sex, which is where that comes from if you
Yeah,
didn't know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh it's and that all kind of kept going until about 1066. And I think Archie you have a lot on that. I'll let you talk about that.
1066. Everyone knows 1066.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
if you get taught it in the British education system, which everyone does, even if you live not in the
Red
British
herring,
Isles.
keep that in your head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not the English, not the
Not the
Scottish.
English or the Scottish education, the
British.
British education. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But when William the Conqueror, William the Buttard, as he was previously known, came across the channel, and did some that bastard did some conquering. That's how I
Yeah.
was taught it. Uh,
He earned his keep.
he did. Goddamn froggy, or whatever he was.
Yeah, or as
Um,
they say in French, I can't speak French.
exactly. Yeah, that wasn't far off, to be honest. That sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to? Actually, I was going to call Macron, but we don't really have time, do we?
Yeah,
He
I
likes to
mean,
just go off on random stuff, so I'll leave him.
and
I'll,
plus, we promised someone else they'd be a guest, so it'd be kind
yeah.
of rude, wouldn't it?
No, yeah, we can't have Macron as our first guest. That would be rude.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Um, But yeah, no, William the Conqueror. He basically just sort of banished the British people, and sort of took over, the Anglo-Saxons and all of that, and established his like French kingdom. And the British people were kind of sent into sort of hiding for a while, and their population greatly decreased.
However, there was one place that British people were herded into hiding. And it's again very common. This is actually where British people get this tactic of hiding in plain sight.
Mm.
So, Big Ben, we all know it. Big palace, yada yada yada.
The biggest
The
Ben there
origin of
is.
yeah, exactly. You know, it's even the huge bloke down the street.
Mm.
No, it's Big Ben's bigger. But the real kind of hiding in plain sight tactic for British people actually comes from Big Ben, because on that place before there was actually a very large tower,
Yeah.
and this very large tower actually was a prison for British people. And the reason it was a tower is because actually British people have a very massive fear of heights. And so with the tower, they could only, obviously never think of escaping because, it's very high up and they'd get scared. Things. It was kind of a very big feat, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is
Massive
really
feat.
engineering marvel kind of thing,
Yeah. A wonder of its time, as it still is today, admittedly.
yeah. Now it should stand to reason that with Parliament burning down, the original tower has obviously been lost. So where did the British people go? They actually because British people are very good at disguises. What they actually did is they just kind of pretended to be workers and then actually rebuilt Parliament.
Mm.
And what they did is they basically rebuilt it in like British style, which is kind of why Parliament is such a unique building. It's actually an
Yes.
ancient British
British
style.
architecture. Yeah.
It's got these very long lines. That's actually reminiscent of candle wax because British people used candle wax a lot because they often shut the windows on the tower to not
Mm.
let light in. So obviously they could only really use candles at the
Yeah.
time.
British people really don't like sunlight. It's very bad for them. But candles and
Yeah,
other dim illumination methods work quite well.
it's also why Big Ben has barely any windows and very like
Yes.
thick glass. It's just so light doesn't come in. And what it basically was a prison. It was a prison for British people.
Yeah,
Uh,
a holding cell of sorts.
yeah, and as William the Conqueror in this very blatantly racist policy, I think
Mm.
we should just call it like we see it.
Yeah, no.
Uh, this very racist policy, he holds them in this big tower, and
Hmm.
with that tower within that tower, it's basically just a bunch of British people just kind of shouting at each other through cells. Uh, but the thing with British language is that it's really similar to
Uh,
kind of modern
English, yeah.
English. Yeah, it's
Just
very
different.
similar to English because obviously they were around in England and Scotland and Ireland and Wales and things like that. You always forget Wales. It's
Yeah.
it's, it's such a it's
There's
such
not
a
much point in
small little
remembering
place.
it a lot of the time, is the thing.
Yeah.
There's not much
I mean
there.
the Cornwall as well. Like Cornwall was
Oh, don't
independent for a
get don't
while.
get me started on Cornwall. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to
It's just
I don't want to like derail the podcast. Now's just not the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
Although I do want to
another
derail the
another
podcast a little
episode.
bit. I do want to derail the podcast a little bit because I think at this time it's important to bring up the Tower of London, which was the first
Yeah, that's a
attempt
good
to
point.
contain the British populace, uh,
Mm.
but it failed. There was a British people have breached containment was blasted across the William the Conqueror's realm,
Yeah,
and sent panic into the heart of everyone
yeah.
to know that British
It was a
people are
very big
rulers.
moral panic.
Oh my god, it was terrifying.
It was happening around the time of the Doomsday Book, which is why it's actually called that.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
because people thought that with British people breaking out, there'd be a rebellion, which there rightfully should have been, in my opinion. Because British people actually hadn't done anything wrong, and still to a degree haven't
Yes.
um done anything wrong. I mean, they've done as much wrong as any other person would do, and I think it's ridiculous,
Mm,
really,
mm.
what happened to them.
It is.
But I think it's important to talk about why British people were imprisoned, and that is because Britain and like the British identity is very much multicultural and multilingual. Because British people were very much nomadic,
Yeah.
and so
Well, they would sort
the
of
no
follow druids around to different waystones and other sites of power and that sort of stuff, wasn't it? That was the sort of British lifestyle for a long time.
yeah they were very much kind of assimilate anywhere really and just kind of find work and stuff. Generally nothing major at all. They just were kind of nomadic.
Mm.
Uh, and with that came a lot of kind of bilingualism, trilingualism. They basically were able to be very effective with communication.
Yeah,
And
and yeah, sorry.
yeah, and with that, obviously, when you conquer a new realm, you'd want to get a lot of population control. And it should be stated that William the Conqueror didn't just do this with British people.
No,
It's
no,
just
no.
that he did it with British people in this specific way
Well,
that then
and
led to
British
the
people are the
events in the
group that are
future.
still like around today, significantly. The Squamish people also, suffered greatly, but they didn't really have um as much of a lasting impact.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, you can
But
still see
anyway, back.
some remnants of them, but yeah. Sorry, go on, go on.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't want to cut you
Many.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's fine. Uh, but really, what it is that the positioning of the tower, the main tower, because the Tower of London obviously was its own thing, but that was more of a general holding area that a large percentage of British people happened to be in.
Mm.
But the main tower, the tower which now, well, has burnt down, but used to be in
Mm-hmm.
Parliament Square in Westminster.
Yep.
It was as I just said in Parliament Square, and obviously when William the Conqueror was building his administration, it was built right next to the massive tower for reasons to this day unknown.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, that's really baffling. That one.
that one. There's like conspiracies about that we won't touch as a conspiracy podcast just due to the complete lunacy.
There's
Like,
they're too conspirators. That
yeah,
is the
like,
right word.
yeah, exactly.
Conspirators, but yeah, they're too. We don't want to get like arrested or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is already a pretty heavy
I was going
operation.
to say
We want to
we're
keep on
risking our
track.
lives giving you this information,
Exactly.
but we don't risk our lives that much. But yes,
But
sorry.
basically, I think I should hand it over again to my co-host because this is actually important. But while he was building his administration, he built it next to the tower, and events kind of unfolded from there. Would you like to take over?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Basically, the sort of corruption of the British people started to seep its way into the, at the time, Norman, sort of like government and aristocracy and the ruling class and that started to get corrupted by British essence, like a very, basically, to make a comparison, Parliament was like a big cup of tea. And the British people were the
Mm.
tea bag sitting in there for a little bit too long.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and that sort of continued over the ages until the government, which we now call the British government, not the
Yeah,
English government.
red herring.
Yeah, exactly. The British government, it was made up of British people, almost exclusively. And they're the ones that control what goes on in England and Wales and Scotland, but it's British people doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, members of Parliament actually, a few exceptions, but they don't speak English, they speak British, which is why you
Which,
hear
as we
them.
said earlier,
Yeah,
really similar to English,
very
apart from a
similar.
few key words. And you can actually see this next time you watch a parliamentary debate. They say, and all those.
That sort of stuff.
Yeah, you might think that's just one of these old people having an aneurysm, but it's actually traditional British
British dialects
disagreement
and
and
speaking.
agreement dialects
Yeah, yeah. No,
that
it's crazy.
that you can actually remember from that big tower as how they would communicate to show negative and positive.
Yes, yeah, yeah. You could hear that from the tower for ages. You still can actually. it's harder because London's a lot more of a built up city now. But
Yeah,
if you sort of stand next to the tower, obviously when the bells aren't chiming, that's another way they mask the just general British
yeah,
noises from that dreadful tower. Um,
yeah.
but
It's
if you
awful noise.
manage to get there when it's like completely quiet and there's no sound, and you listen like really carefully, you might hear some sort of like murmurings and random bits of British. And that's where a lot of our knowledge
Yeah,
of the British language comes from. It's basically people spying on Big Ben and seeing what they can find.
yeah. In the 1930s, actually, actually no, sorry, in the 1910s, kind of during World
Mm.
War One, during
Yeah,
blackouts, you could actually hear because again, as we said earlier, British people cover up their windows, so blackouts weren't really that big of a deal to them. And
yeah,
so what they would do is they would keep working by candlelight and obviously keep shouting. So, and obviously during that, people could hear them. People
hmm
could hear them around Westminster. They'd be walking past. Soldiers would hear them. And again, this is very much an all the way to the top conspiracy. So not many people know about this. We've been clued in by an anonymous source. We can't say mostly because their name is in British. So
yes, it would
good
be.
luck trying to figure out how to say
Yeah,
that.
we do know. Yeah,
Gavin, I don't know,
we can't say. We can't say.
but yeah. And what ends up what ends up kind of happening is people are like, what are these weird noises coming from Big Ben? This isn't the clock. This isn't the
Yeah,
clock.
clocks don't make that noise.
And
They make clocky kind of noises, ticks and tocks and all the rest. You know,
yeah, ticks, talks, maybe even a bell.
a little bit of a
Uh,
bong or something. Yeah,
yeah,
not
exactly,
not this weird, almost English noises we're hearing.
exactly. And so what they end up doing is they put up acoustic foam in Big
Mm,
Ben,
yeah,
and they replace it again in the 40s and in the 70s as well. They basically
yeah,
replace them almost every 30 years. They replace them in the early 2000s, as we could see from this receipt that the British government, again, red herring, British government has for a lot of acoustic foam. And that's literally what it
yeah.
says. They don't say a
Exactly.
specific amount, they just
Just
say a lot,
loads, bloody lots of it. I think is the exact
which
word
is
they use.
actually another British kind of term is a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
That one's
because
kind of
they need
broken into
simple,
the
quick
main English
communication.
language, hasn't it? A bit.
Yeah, it really has, but it's actually just due to the fact that British accounting very much deals in extremes. Just again, because they spend most of their time communicating through just kind of shouting.
Mm.
So it's a lot or a little, and you can it a little can be £1,000,000. It can be £1. A lot can be £2. It can be 1 billion.
Yeah, no,
Who really knows? British people do. That's who.
yeah, and no one knows them, so it's hard to figure
Yeah.
out.
Um, and basically, what it meant was that British people have kind of pretty much hegemonized the kind of upper echelons of government
Exactly,
through
and
this.
of many parts of society as well. You'll find a lot of those sort of heads and deans of you know English and British universities are
Mm,
British, and also
yeah, exactly.
many celebrities. Don Cheadle is British.
Dodge.
Uh,
And yeah,
yeah, Don
true.
Cheadle is British. There's rumors of many celebrities being actually of British or of British descent. Uh, yeah, some
Now
yeah.
it now there are some cases that I feel like get misunderstood.
Hmm.
British people are
Aren't people.
very are uh, are
They're not people.
they're not people.
Don't call them that.
Um, don't call them that.
Just
They
say
don't
the
like it. They
British.
just
They
they're
just hiss at
British.
you.
Yes.
They just go. Yeah. Hiss.
And you know, Britain is a kind of concept that they've tried to
Mm.
normalize, but the real kind of signs of British administration in the open kind of going away are, of course, you have Wessex, you have Sussex, you have like Essex, but we're a Nussex and Sex.
Yeah.
Nussex and Sex were both heavily British kingdoms.
Yeah.
Sex
Heavily sexy
specifically,
kingdoms.
very sexy. They were really sexy. But Wessex, Sussex, and Essex were not dominated by the British. They were a minority,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
British kind of became like a lingua franca, if you will,
I
around
will.
the different kingdoms of the British Isles. Is a thing that I forgot to mention earlier. But this is very top secret and harsh
It's fine.
information. So
Yeah.
I feel like losing a few steps along the
If we
road isn't
told you
that big of a
everything in
deal.
perfect chronological order and it made sense, the algorithms would be able to pick it up too,
Yeah,
and we
we
wouldn't
will
stand a
die.
chance. Yeah, we would die.
We would die. Very short deaths,
A
granted.
horrible
British people are
death.
efficient, but it's so death's pretty horrible, man.
Mm.
It'll be
Most
short,
likely,
but
you guys, our beloved listeners, love you to death, wouldn't even know that we died because we'd be replaced by British people who looked similar
yeah,
to us. Yeah,
yeah. And
they're very efficient.
as much as we may look unique, it is very easy to replace somebody.
Yeah, yeah, no, very,
And
very easy.
I guess when talking about the kind of security of this whole operation, I think I should pass it to you again because you know a lot more than me
The
on
security
the
of the
security
operation?
aspect.
Yeah,
Yeah, the services and things.
yeah. Well, I mean, do you mean how they sort of keep it secure, or like
Yeah, like the
oh, okay.
policing, the Secret Service, people
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the
Well, so obviously, British government they run the British stuff, and they sort of have anything that any organization that is sort of titled as like Her Majesty's something or something, or just contains you know British in it. That's controlled by British people.
British
They're
people.
everywhere.
Yeah, I mean
Uh,
British gas.
yeah, that's
You know?
one. Yeah, Her Majesty's like post service is a British controlled thing.
Yeah,
Um, if you look into it, you'll find there's quite a lot of services controlled by British. Uh, and so it's very hard to sort of infiltrate into the sort of circle of British, people, because
yeah,
you'll notice if you ever try and you start getting close, the British police will start, they'll start looking at you funny. They can like smell it. You might see their eyes
yeah.
glowing a bit red. They're
British people have a heightened sense of smell.
yeah, they do.
It's
Um,
one of the characteristics.
so you can't really mess with them like that. It's not gonna work. It's just gonna end badly for you.
Yeah,
And they
it's truly scary.
yeah, they keep
Now,
everything
I
on the
think,
lockdown. Yeah, sorry.
yeah. Now, I think that the final element we should discuss, and you kind of hinted at it earlier,
Mm.
is just how like far the reach is and how hidden it is of British people. Notice again, there's England, there's Scotland, there's Wales, and there's Ireland.
Yeah.
Britannia is nowhere.
Mm.
Brittany, sure, exists.
Exists, but it's not
Yeah,
British people.
exists. It's not British people though, is it?
No, 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 no.
What it is, right, is that Britannia did exist. We mentioned this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But because they're no longer officially in administration, the government won't admit they exist. They'll
Yep.
just say, "Oh, it's just a name for the Isles." That's where the British
Yes.
deception actually happens.
Mm.
The British Isles. Isles. Nobody uses that word anymore. Do you know why? It's a British word. It's a British word.
Yeah.
It's a word from the British language.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they do it. Is they say all these old words that we don't use anymore. That's just old English. No.
Yeah.
Do you know what old English is? It's
It's
British.
British
It's a dog whistle. It's a dog whistle for British.
in it.
Exactly. We English words like in it, governor, all these things,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's English. British stuff, right?
Yeah.
All the British stuff, it's Isles, like all these weird kind of old words. Ye
Halifax.
oldie, Halifax.
That's a British
That's
word.
classic British surname. That's how you can spot them. Is that
Yeah.
British surname?
You'll know actually. There's a few British surnames, but they stick out sometimes if you know what to look for.
Exactly. Like Boner.
Yeah.
Where
Boner.
where the the British government, right? And we can refer to them as
The
that.
British government has a boner.
The British government had a prime minister called Arthur Bonar Law.
That's
Look
actually
it up. That's real. That's real.
the name Big Ben is like an anglicized version of boner.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's where Big Ben comes from. It just means boner.
Yeah, it's true.
That is true.
Um. um. uh, Parliament as well. Is another dog whistle. Parliament.
It just means
is
boner.
no.
No, sorry.
Surprisingly enough.
Fuck it up.
Parliament, as you may know, is like a French word for kind of a French turn an anglicization of a French term for like speaking.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't really know. I'm not a
Parlay.
linguist.
It's what pirates
Parlay.
say, isn't it? Parlay.
Yeah, parlay. Yeah.
No, deadass is what they
But
say. Don't like fuck with me on that.
it's it's meant to be a kind of communication with the king, that whole thing. However, the reason that's a dog whistle is because talking with the king, who were the people who were multilingual in the British Isles
Yeah,
before the Normans came? British people.
British people.
So who were the people talking in there who could talk to everybody, all the representatives, and to the king?
Yep, you guessed
British
it.
people.
The British. Yeah.
The British, man. They're everywhere.
They're
In every.
everywhere, bro.
They have crossed languages.
Check under your desk
Multiple
right now.
times.
There might be a British person. I'm
You
all
might
good,
be British.
but
You don't know.
you never know.
I'm all good too.
You
I'm
good?
in.
Okay, great.
I'm safe.
Safe.
I'm safe.
I locked my door before this one, man. I don't want any British people.
They can come and try me. You know what I mean?
Shit, you ready? You ready for them?
I'm ready. I'm ready to parlay mon with them.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm throwing them back at them. These dog whistles.
Backgammon, backgammon, badminton,
Gammon as well.
gammon.
It's ham. Gammon. You think it originates from French? No.
No,
British.
British.
The British actually gave that word to the French, and then they gave it.
It was like a
English.
trade. Yeah.
Yeah, because the British during the Roman Empire were kind of sent to France. So kind of, yeah. That's kind of irrelevant to the story, so we didn't
Yeah,
mention it
sorry,
earlier.
sorry.
But it feels like it should be mentioned offhandedly now.
Uh huh.
Now, to kind of begin to conclude, Britons, because obviously there's
Oh,
Britain.
sorry. Yeah, yeah. Where were we?
So, Britons are kind of like descended from British people. Because obviously, as I just mentioned earlier, during the Roman Empire, they were kind of sent to France through just the large empire. And Bretons don't control anything really.
No, no, no.
They aren't as much. They aren't as in control as Britain. They aren't in control of
influential.
France, but they were in control of the Umayyad Caliphate in
Yes.
Iberia.
Uh-huh.
All the administrators were Bretons.
Mhm.
This is a fact.
Mhm.
Look it up.
It is a fact. You can look it up. There's
And I think
countless
that's
pages.
really where we end. That's all the information we could give you. That's all the information we could try to give you.
Yeah.
Stay alert. is
If
what
you
we
have
can
any
say.
questions, don't ask us. We won't
Yeah,
answer.
we will not answer them. We won't. We
Yeah.
don't know who you are.
Our main
leave
goal
us
is
alone.
to blow up and then act like we don't know anybody.
Exactly. Signing off. I've been Yuri.
Yeah, I've been Archie, and I plan
And,
to keep being Archie for a little while longer.
So do I.
Yeah.
Thank you for
plan to keep
listening.
being Archie.
Yeah.
Oh. What do you mean?
Sorry, man.
No.
I've been you all
please.
along. Anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening
Thank
if
you
you've
for
made it
listening.
this far.
Mm.
And we hope to see you next
And we hope to
time
see you next
on
time
Jason Statham
On
Facebook.
Jason Statham Facebook. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.